It's your turn to give us a prayer. Thank you.
Dear Father in heaven, we are grateful to Thee for the wonderful blessings we have to live in such a great community. We're grateful for the recent assistance in fighting the fires and for those brave individuals who stepped up in that charge. We ask that Thou would bless them and their families for the great sacrifice that they paid for the citizens of this area. We ask always for Thy Spirit to be with us, to make wise decisions on behalf of the town, and to be inspired to do Thy will in our town business. We ask and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councillor. We will now call the meeting to order. This 26th day of September 2017. And we will look at the agenda. I have one item at this point that would need to be added under 7G, and is Communities in Bloom. All right? And that's about the only thing I have to add. So I need a motion.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. We will excuse Councillor Barfuss from this meeting as he's busy with other activities right now. He'll join us later on. And we do not have any delegations. So we have the minutes of September the 12th. It was a regular meeting. If you feel comfortable.
I will make the motion to adopt the minutes of September 12th, 2017.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 6, bylaw and policies. We have 3 items here. The first one is an FCSS budget adjustment. As you could see, the issue, it really is a paper issue. It's a matter of moving some funds from one account to another. It's not going to create any shortages in the budget. Councillor Bengry, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, as we discussed this, it is a fairly serious matter, Mayor Pease. We don't want to send money back. We need to move it so that we can put it into our SCSS budget. So we need to have a motion to that regards.
Okay, would you be willing to put a motion forward to
Yes.
approve the spending of the deferred FCSS grant?
I'll make a motion that we move the $30,795 of deferred FCSS grant money according to the attached schedule of on the agenda item.
There's a schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, so thank you very much. Any questions regarding this item?
Yeah, I just have a question. I was reading through it on the, it's got all of the different places, the breakdown.
Yeah.
And then but that 30,000 is just designated under FCSS deferred grant revenues. And what I was kind of wondering is where they intended to spend that. And one of the reasons I'm asking is because one of the items later on in our agenda might be a good candidate for FCSS funding, possibly.
No, that item is not a good candidate for that.
Well, anyway, we'll talk about that when it comes up.
The 30,000 we run back into the general budget of the 2017, and it'll come up and we'll be able to expend that in mid-year requests.
Well, if you look at it, Councillor, the expenditure is listed not particularly, but
Right.
We have a total of grant of 308,313.
Right.
And you already have a total of expenditure of 308,313.
Yeah.
So that amount has been allocated somewhere, except we don't have the exact breakdown of your
Exactly.
mid-year expenses.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that we do not have, but it
Just
has been allocated.
well, on the table here, that 30,000 is designated under FCS as deferred grant revenues. It's not
Right.
assigned to any other
But it-
mid-year requests or anything, then that's kind of.
Well, we
my
have
question.
not done our mid-year request yet.
Okay.
That's why.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it is within those expenditure, otherwise you couldn't balance the books.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's already there. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. All in favor? Thank you very much. Councillor, you can report that we have done the transfer.
Thank you. I should have made a report to that, but I knew it was coming up to that
Thank you.
one other
All
thing
right.
from SCS is coming up.
So, under 6B is policy C7-1, has to do with a code of conduct for municipal councillors. Now, if I understand properly, we need to have something in our code of conduct that speaks of harassment or consequences of. We don't have the consequences right now as we speak in our code of conduct. But what we have now something that tells us it's not acceptable, or we do not have the consequence. That is something that will be mandated by the MGA. We'll have to deal with that later. So meanwhile, what we need to do is to approve the policy as amended.
Yeah, I was just going to verify with our administration, this section that's been moved over was basically word for word verbatim what we transferred out of the old
Jeff?
policy.
Yeah, we actually deleted one of the clauses because it was really redundant with something that was in there, but yes, we took the council portion of the harassment policy and moved it into code of conduct, yes.
Yeah.
With that, I'll move to accept the town policy C71 as amended.
All right. Question?
I had one question under, possible amendment, as I was kind of looking at this, kind of scrutinizing it, under the yellow highlighted section, 4D, I was just a little concerned on that sometimes when it says, cease any behavior that is found offensive by another councillor or town employee or employees, I was just wondering if that should be plural in all cases, because I know
I
sometimes
see what you're saying.
one person can reverse that, and by being offended by an action can actually be harassing another councillor. You get what I'm saying? So I'm saying
So-
if it's offensive to more than one councillor or to a number of councillors, then it would be more appropriate rather than saying I'm offended because Dennis keeps pushing, he's putting his hand on his cheek,
And my retort would be too bad.
Yeah, and it should be. But I'm just saying, that I don't think would happen with this council, and I hope it wouldn't happen with any council, but there's that potential.
There's some precedent in the province that that could have been
Okay,
abused.
so
That could be
how
abused.
would you suggest that gets fixed?
I would just make it plural,
Yeah, question.
so counts by other councillors or employees, so that it's not doesn't become a me versus Bill Peavoy or me, something like that. So that it has to be something that's a big enough issue.
Agreed on that it was
It's a
offensive.
big enough issue that we're saying that this behavior is
Okay,
offensive.
all right, but what about if you look at it from a sexual harassment perspective? You wouldn't want to have too many involved with it, would you? I hope not.
No, but I think you would at least have somebody that concur that, that this that behavior was sexual harassment, so that it's not just, doesn't become just one person's opinion.
Right. You're saying that they would have a judge determining whether it was petty or offensive.
Or real, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Some kind of a
That's a
mediation.
tough one.
To that, Councillor Creed, I'd like to know who adjudicates what's offensive and what isn't, and what's sexual harassment and what isn't. I mean,
That would have to be-
do we have that spelled out? Whose decision is it to make that call? Because something that I might do to Councillor Barnes or reversal, we wouldn't think that it would be harassment or anything like that, but if I did it to somebody else, they might pick it up as being harassment. So who adjudicates
Yeah.
on what grounds?
And that's why I felt like, you know, if you had more than one person that was concurring that was inappropriate.
But often those actions are maybe not even done where there is somebody else there. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That is a problem.
But
And most situations of sexual harassment are not done where others are privy and witness to it.
That's true, but at least it could be reported, say, you know, I whistled at somebody, you know, a female
Okay.
counselor or employee, and then she says, okay, that's sexual harassment. So if it was reported and you guys say, yeah, whistling is sexual harassment, you shouldn't do that. Okay, that's good, but if you say, no, that wasn't intended to be sexual harassment, you know, then...
Councillor, what I really think you're coming at, you're pointing to the fact that the word harassment is not defined properly.
Yeah,
Already,
and
there
some-
is no definition, and that's a problem.
Some people might,
Right.
you know...
Jeff, would it be possible to kind of put a proper definition there somewhere?
That's pretty tough.
Well, whatever, you can't use a word and hope for somebody to confirm it.
Let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
Jeff, what process is in place to determine the harassment within the administration, within the organization? Is there a, you know, like a reporting system, it goes to a supervisor, then eventually to you, I'm guessing?
I'd have to grab the policy, frankly, Councillor, I don't have it in front of me.
Right.
I think it can be defined for the purpose of the policy, but it's very subjective too, right? That's the trick.
Well,
So
that is.
it's very hard to tell someone who feels that they're subject to any kind of harassment that they haven't been. Like if you say, you know, I find this aggressive behavior or harassing behavior, it's pretty hard for me to say, no, it's not. No, you don't. You know, it's very difficult. And of course, the courts and the province and the federal government have these same struggles. But we could look at better defining it.
Yeah, I think it should be
That's
defined
pretty
because is that harassment, sexual is one story, harassment as just being in your back and bugging you every 5 minutes of the day over what is said a meeting ago or whatever. That's a different story, right?
Yeah, when I was looking at this, I thought, well, are you referring to somebody just pestering somebody, or are you referring to sexual harassment? Because sexual
Yeah,
harassment
what is
and bugging somebody is two different things, so
Yeah.
you've got to be very specific
Yeah, I
in
think so.
calling them two different things.
I think so.
Yeah, so the reason I asked about a town policy is just to keep this as simple as possible, where it says, any behavior that is found offensive, if we added the word according to or as per town policy, blah, 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 you know, wherein we define all of that, we don't need to gum this up with 7 paragraphs.
Right.
But if you've already got something that has a whole,
I don't think it would be thoroughly defined.
right,
No, I don't.
But maybe in the world we live,
Yeah.
it needs to be more
Yeah.
particularly defined.
well, I recall a policy that said something where it goes up to you and then eventually can come before council,
Shouldn't people pull
eventually.
that up?
If somebody has a problem with the way you handled it, then it can come
Right.
before us.
Right.
And maybe that's, you know, we just follow that same procedure here, and if an individual has a problem, they can go to you, and you can maybe sort it out. And if they're not satisfied with the way you did it, they could come to council and seek, you know.
But, you know, the problem
original
becomes
harassment
when you
policy.
start to have, okay, I'm a tough old bird, and I'm an old bird, but what about having somebody very young and is constantly intimidated at the table? How do they handle that?
Yeah.
Is that harassment? Is intimidation harassment?
Well,
I don't know. This is why I'm saying, should we define something somewhere?
Well, here's an example.
Okay.
You just
Councillor Bengry wanted to-
used a term for yourself, calling yourself an old bird. If I dared to say that if I was ticked off at you at a particular time and said that in public, then that could be termed harassment. But so,
Okay, so we
in our politically
are,
correct world, we gotta be careful.
we are in a very gray area
Yeah.
that maybe we need to shed some light
I would
on.
never call you.
I would suggest
I
that
call myself
we have
okay.
administration contact Brownlee or somebody like that.
Well, I think the province has probably something.
And the reason why,
Yeah.
because you get into a sexual harassment dispute with an employee, that's a pretty serious charge, and I'll tell you, if it went to court, there could be some real
Okay,
problems.
well, we, maybe, all right, so we have a motion on the table, so how do we want to handle this one? Do we want to table it?
I think so.
Here, just a suggestion, it's my motion, I can withdraw it, it's fine, but if we let it stand and it passes, we can always add a little clause or amendment to it later, and for now, it'll clean it up for the purposes of moving this from the other
Yeah,
policy.
that's what I'm
It's true,
wondering.
it's true, you could pass it and then direct administration
To
to amend it.
revise
To amend
it.
it,
And
yeah.
you can do
Okay.
some homework.
Yeah.
All right.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
discussion,
Councillor, it's a very good suggestion. So we have that motion, any more conversation? No? All in favor? Thank you very much, so well done.
Do
Okay.
you want to make that one?
So, so do we need another motion here to, okay, so
Go ahead, Councillor.
I will make a
Green.
motion that, to direct administration to revisit the policy and see if there's a way to
Define.
make a better definition or solution so that we, to alleviate,
To add clarity
yeah, so we add some clarity to the
to the
policy.
policy.
Okay.
Works? All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, 6C, administrative policy recommendations. As you could see, there are 4 policies here that have been recommended to be moved to administration. And those have some to do with bicycles lost or stolen, I'm sure the story administrative. Travel expenses, that has to do with council and administration, but we already have those travel expenses covered in our remuneration policy. The agreed-on policy has to do with all the detail of the day-to-day operation, which is not exactly something that is going to change anything at this table. And the last one has to do with the same kind of idea. It's a Rotary Reunion Center that is under contract as a lease, and therefore more the obligation of the person who contracts the building and the campground rather than ourselves. So if you feel so inclined, or if you have questions, go ahead.
Okay, since I was on the policy committee when we discussed these, I feel that this is the correct solution, and I will make the motion to rescind policies B5, T15, -2, A-20, and R-30-1 so that they can be adopted as administration policies. And we want to discuss.
Anybody wants to talk with us?
Yeah,
Go
my
ahead.
question for administration, regarding assets like the Agrodome and the Reunion Center and such, do the agreements regarding those facilities require a motion from council?
If I were to now, I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here, but I think I'm correct. We redid the purchasing policy 6 or 8 months ago, as I recall. And in there we designated, these are the types of agreements and contracts that will have to go before council. And I'm quite sure we said specifically in there that any facilities being owned by the town and being operated for on behalf of the town would have to have a motion of council. I couldn't ratify those without a motion of council. So if now, we have a very antiquated agreement with the Ag Society. It hasn't been reviewed in 15 years, I'll bet I'm not too short of that. It's been a long time. So that probably needs redone. But I'm pretty sure under the purchasing policy, that would need a vote of council to be ratified.
And so I'm just wondering if these policies, these two, the Rotary and the Agrodome, if those policies currently stand as the motions of council and we're about to rescind them, which may
No, I don't think so.
hurt those agreements or the legal status of something?
No, there's no agreement on the Rotary Reunion Center policy. And the Agrodome one, there is an agreement as a schedule. So the agreement's a bit of a standalone, that this is what was agreed at the time, albeit very antiquated now. We're not operating as per that agreement. Not to the detriment of the town by any means. The Ag Society does a wonderful job of taking care of their business. But it is antiquated. What I don't like in the policies, the governance policies, it talks about, you know, you can do this on the facility, and then you need to clean the stalls like this, and then you need to have the lights off by this, and do this like
Like a manual.
It's really a procedural manual,
Yeah.
is what the policy is. That's the problem we had with the pool policy, the civic center, the Agrodome, they're procedural manuals. So I think the agreement would stand on its own, and I don't think it's gonna be jeopardized by rescinding this, but I think it will force us to address the agreement with the Ag Society.
Good.
Yeah, that was my only concern. I understand moving all of that administrative stuff out makes perfect sense. I just didn't want to leave us hanging with nothing as far as an
Legal,
agreement.
yeah. No, I
Or
don't
we
know.
need an additional motion or something by this body once we move these over.
Sure.
So, I mean, if something is determined it's needed, obviously bring it back to us, but.
Yeah, I think the original agreement was adopted by a motion of council, and it would
Yes, it
stand on
was.
its own.
Right.
Okay.
That's my recollection of it.
All right, thank you for the clarification. So we have a motion on the table. All in favor? Thank you very much. So those 4 policies are now rescinded and brought back as administration policy. All right, let's go on to 7, other business. 7A. This one is not surprising. We were expecting that piece of communication from the Rotary Club. They need a letter of support for the CFEP application. Now, wisely so, Jeff indicated in his background the importance when we write that letter, and if we want to write that letter of support, to make sure that everything is so expressed to deal with the time sensitivity of the funding. I went to Rotary on their invitation about 2 weeks ago, Jeff? About 2 weeks ago. And I addressed that very topic. And I think they finally got it. The problem that we ran into is because the grant that we have for the pool was rejected at this point, and that the building needs to be brought up to code within a certain period of time. Therefore, the priority of funding has to go to the pool. And I explained that to them, and I understood that. In fact, I came and saw Jeff and made it clear that the mayor taken time to rehash what Jeff was going to have them understand. It's not that we're not interested in a project, it's that from a financial and fiscal perspective, we need to do it right and according to a proper timeline. So,
Mayor, I'm suggesting that we write a letter back to the Rotary Club and say at this point in time, we need to put this on hold and let the new council deal with it, simply because of that time factor involved.
well, I think if you read the background there, we maybe can do a little bit of proactive support with conditions.
Yeah, but
So that-
if we give them that letter, are they going to get the feeling that they can go right in and do the application immediately?
Jeff, do you want to maybe address all these
That's my
concerns?
concern.
Because there are multiple concerns here,
Sure.
and you are raising a good point.
Yeah, I stewed on this one quite a while. In my background document, where I still come out on this, I said, I feel that there is a correctly and carefully worded letter that can support the project.
Right.
I don't quite have that formulated in my mind yet, but here is, I actually got an additional letter from Mr. Lowe, Justin Lowe, and I wanted to read that quick. And these are the points that I think we can conditionally support that will strengthen their grant. One other thing I want to mention is CFEP will give you 30 months from the time you're awarded to complete the project. So it may not be a 2018, it can be maybe a fall 2019.
Right.
Now, again, this whole project is contingent on the fact they get the CFEP. Well, that's the $250,000 elephant in the room, is they've got to get that first, or this is a non-starter. So I've got my head around, of course I want to support this. You, as council, know my opinion on this project. I'm uncomfortable with the timing of it right now. I'm not satisfied the due diligence has been done to be raising money publicly like they are, but that's what they're doing. And I can't stop that. So fine. One of the things that CFEP wants, because we are the landowner, they want a number of assurances that should the project go forward, that the town is willing to maintain ownership of it, and there's a list here that we're okay with it on our lands, that we will give access to the lands for the project, that we will maintain the facility, it will remain on the lands for a minimum of 5 years, it will be accessible to the public for a minimum of 5 years, and then the other things that Mr. Lowe mentioned in his letter, which included those ongoing costs and things like that. So I do think there is potentially a conditional upon successful procurement of the financing, pending a motion of the future council, the town is prepared to commit the following.
Yeah.
I know that's semantics.
Semantics
But-
at this point is what's
That's all we can
required.
get.
But it is about what we can give.
Yes.
So saying if the future, if there's successful procurement, then you know what, if someone walks up to us with $400,000 in a bag and wants to do a project, chances are politically the council's going to support it.
Yeah.
Chances are. Now, again, there's some ongoing costs for us that are still unknown, which I'm not comfortable with. So we know there's ongoing maintenance, water, chemical, treatment, all that stuff. And I don't know what that number looks like yet, so that makes me a touch uncomfortable. But I think that we can give them some assurance that, again, conditionally upon successful procurement of capital funding, the town can say that, yes, the public, for a minimum of 5 years, it can be on our land, it'll be open to the public, we'll maintain it. I think those are the safer things we can certainly say.
Okay, all right, so Councillor Creed, Bengry and Barnes.
All right, yeah, I guess my question is, what's the time sensitivity of their grant application for this CFEP? Is it something that has to be done right away, or is it something that the new council could deal with?
Yes, at the end of
So,
October.
yes, the grant application is October 15.
Yeah,
That's the problem with the grant application, but I actually was hearing your question a little differently, and let me explain how I heard it. Is there any reason the Rotarians need to apply for the October 15th deadline?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
But they're convinced they're going to, and it's October 15th.
Okay.
So if they're gonna do that's a trade-off they're having to balance here. Do they have a stronger application applying now, or do they have one waiting for the resolution of a new council? My opinion is they have a stronger application in March 15th of 2018 with the resolution of a new council. However, the timelines aren't lining up for the new council to prepare budget and for them to do it in the timeframe they wish to do it.
Councillor Bengry, you wanted to add something?
That was my concern, Jeff, that I think we're rushing this because there's so many things that Rotary Club has to put in place. And we can't address those things until we get an idea of what they want. I know they want a spray park, period, amen, but we don't know what their needs are for land size. We haven't even realized a location for it. And there's other projects that are online, such as our swimming pool, and I think we're sticking a little bit,
Okay.
getting the cart before the horse.
All right, thank you. But this is why, if we were to give them support, it has to be very conditional.
Absolutely, but do
Because
they
without
understand that?
Well, I would have to, because
Well, I
it's
don't know if
written.
they do because they're spearing ahead and getting
But
funding.
the spearing ahead is maybe because I have a sense that I might get that funding now. I do not know what kind of contact I have with Community Future, no idea. But I probably have some that had a past Rotarian there.
Well, this is municipal affairs.
Oh, this one is
Is the
municipal.
recipient, yeah,
affairs.
it's lottery funds.
Oh, that's a lottery.
Yeah.
Do they have somebody that knows something about it? I do not know. I do not know. So this is why we have to be cautious.
Okay, so my concern here is I'm in favor of the spray park. The concern that I have is the locations. Now, we've already discussed that if the location was by the pool, we would save $50,000 or $60,000 by using the circulation system that we've already got there for purifying. Maybe, yeah,
Not
if we
sure,
could.
not sure.
The other concern that I have is I was at the dinner at the seniors last month. I sat down with a group of people and I barely got sat down and they're right now really upset with the town to think that they're going to take the town square and put a spray park up in the town square. And I said, oh, hold on here. We haven't made that decision yet. Like I said, there's a lot of ongoing things that, I mean, we've already discussed that we'd like to help the seniors get their bocce ball court and the pickleball thing, you know, we could only do so much, right? So what takes priority? And my feeling is that the seniors are getting the feeling that they're getting put off all the time and other things are coming forward. And, you know, these are wonderful things that the Rotary Club want to do. That's why I think the timing just isn't right at this point in time, but I would be in favor of a conditional approval.
One of the differences when we have this conversation with the seniors is the Rotary's coming forward with it and planning to raise the majority of the money for it, right? So they're driving this a little heavier, and we need to partner with the seniors better to have them access some things as well, because they can apply for CFEP grants, and they can do a lot of that too,
Well,
right?
here's the other kind of situation. One of the Rotarian members, also one of the seniors that's been on our case about getting the bocce ball and stuff, and then he's telling the seniors that we're going ahead, and he's giving them out funding documents to donate and everything. I'm thinking, hold on here. You know, you're in favor of this, now this one's going to take precedence? We've got to have some priorities here.
Well, yeah.
We need to have presentations by
Okay,
both.
essentially,
We do need to have
essentially
presentations by
there is
both parties.
something that is lacking, and is the master plan regarding
Yep.
Parks and Rec. And that is not in place yet
Yeah,
for us to be able to decide on a location, the bocce ball, the pickleball and all that.
yeah,
That's in the making.
yeah.
One more comment, and actually, it's kind of in favor of the project, but my thinking is that if they're trying to raise funds for this, then they need to get it out before the public, and the best way to be that is make it an election issue and campaign, get people campaigning for it, and that way we would get public input from the community on whether they really want, you know, this money spent on the park or not. I just think that would be a positive aspect.
You know something? 7 years ago was a swimming pool. Now it's, and I told them that very thing. I said, could be good for them, could go against them.
For me, it just comes down to, I think we can give them a carefully worded conditional letter.
I'm okay
That
with
is
that.
framed positively and shows long-term support. However, it's a weaker letter than it might be for the next grant intake.
Exactly.
And that's the dice I feel they have to roll. That, can we give them something? Sure. Is it a strong commitment? Can't be.
No.
So for me, I think, if I'm understanding the timing of the October 15th deadline, they're trying to get it into the 2017 town budget. So my question is, what does this $70,000 cash do for our 2018 budget? Like,
It's-
I don't know yet.
We haven't
So
seen it.
I guess what I'm asking is, is there a hope and a prayer? Is there no chance? Is there a good chance we can make this work? Slim chance?
No, I would say there's a reasonable chance that we could fund that in 2018.
Okay.
If it was determined to be a priority of the council at the time, of course. Yeah, I would say there's a reasonable chance, and $70,000 isn't change, but it's certainly a manageable amount within the budget. Now, having said that, we're going to be bringing to the new council, some pretty large infrastructure priorities too. Right, and so this all culminates when we sit down for that first presentation. For sure, we're going to bring a budget that's probably going to be $3 million over budget for that discussion, right, about what's the priority. We throw everything in the basket and away we go. So, yeah, I want to be very clear too. I think it's an awesome project. I give the Rotarians every credit in the world for the things they're doing to try and get these fantastic infrastructure pieces. It's just a timing thing for me.
All right, so essentially, if I hear you properly, your recommendation will be a very carefully crafted letter, time-sensitive, budget-sensitive, essentially. So, if there is a desire to put such a motion forward,
I would so move that, just exactly like you're saying.
But if I could ask, for the councillors around the table, if this was still in your tenure, so let's say hypothetically you had one more year, and the capital was found. So by next August, we had all the capital to build this. Are you comfortable with and again, there's some numbers we don't know here, but are there any objections to those ongoing costs and that ongoing maintenance of this thing? Because that's really what we're committing, saying conditional to raising the capital, yeah, we'll do all the rest of this list. It's the capital that's conditional, or is our ongoing maintenance conditional in any way? That's what I want to understand.
that's a good point.
To answer that, and I know you don't know the numbers, but just if you could, to ballpark some kind of percentage based on, compare it to our pool budget. We're spending this much on pool, this would be 10% of that ongoing.
I hope that's high.
10%.
Yeah.
So it'd
I
be
hope
closer to
that's high.
5.
Yeah.
5%, all right.
Okay.
But
Councillor
say, you don't know.
Councillor Bengry.
Okay,
Just
no,
Councillor.
this, my question, if we give them a weak conditional letter of support now, and they don't get the grant, how does that affect their chances of a reapplying? Shouldn't affect
No,
shouldn't affect it. So
they have 6 more months to reapply, if
No,
I'm
I don't think
correct.
that would harm them.
so it wouldn't stop them from reapplying
No.
in the next
No, not at all.
go round?
No.
Okay.
No, I think, I can't envision that would hurt them at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what it would do, it would give them a sense of why we were so cautious. So be it. All right, so Councillor Bengry, would you like to add two
Yeah,
words? Go ahead.
there's, our administrator just told us that there's some big items for infrastructure coming on board with this new council. And we need to have some kind of an idea within, I would say, $20,000 of what it's gonna cost us to operate this spray park. And I'm serious when I say that, because those pool costs can vary, extremely vary. And so can a spray park, the usage, the size, the whole works. And boy, I'll tell you, it's up in the air.
It is extremely unfortunate that the timing is so poor.
Absolutely.
On the other hand, they are offering us an infrastructure that is to the benefit of the community. They're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the community.
They're going to raise funds.
But there is also a cost to maintain that structure, and that will be the town and the citizens that will have to look after that cost.
I recognize there's a motion on the table. I don't like to speak when there's a motion, but I would be totally fine to bring that letter back for approval at the October meeting as well, so you can, or bring it to
Right.
CCW and we can bat it around a little bit too.
All right.
Just to make sure we
I can
capture
sense there is some difficulty with that. So there is a letter, the motion for a letter. Are we ready to vote? or do you need to speak still?
Just put that addition to it.
One other maybe question for Jeff, and I know you don't really have a handle on the, you know, the cost, the maintenance cost that it would be for the town. As I read it, our big costs in the pool and most any other facility is wages. That's always the big item. I don't sense from the spray park that it should be a lot of manpower. So I just wonder if you could comment on.
My biggest concern with the spray park, well,
It's a vandalism.
it's the vandalism piece. So one broken bottle, and you are shop vacuuming the entire spray park until every tiny little sliver is gone, right? And we already deal with that in the pool. We already deal with people driving by and chucking glass bottles and running through the lane and chucking glass bottles in. And the thing you have to do with the spray park, in my opinion, if I'm going to take that over in the liability, is someone's going to have to check that every morning before it becomes operational. So you can program so the water doesn't turn on till 10, or, you know, you can program that, that's all good. And I would hope that the chemical piece and the water treatment's pretty automated. I would echo that, and I think it will be. It's just simply checking and repairing and those kind of things that, as long as everyone treats it right and is respectful, which goes without saying for almost everything, that lowers your concerns greatly. But I am very concerned about the vandalism piece.
Okay, so you think there will be almost a daily
Check-in.
requirement for a...
Well, I think certainly we're gonna have to inspect it daily. If we let people use that and we've got chunks of glass all over, we're getting sued and we're losing. It's simple as that.
Would we plan to fence this?
I think you'd have
Fence
to.
doesn't hold back pop bottles very well.
I don't know, I'm not sure.
Well, we have a number of stray dogs we have in town.
Well, there's that
That could
too.
create
yeah.
major problems.
It would have to be fenced.
But sure, even if it was
All
just a
right,
4-footer.
so those are all
Yeah,
good
okay.
questions that will need to be resolved at a later date. What we are given at this table is a slim conditional.
Very conditional letter.
So we need
Put
to
that in
vote.
your-
Could I just add a little bit to
Yes.
that, though? With those conditions on, we'd have to have some of that information forthcoming and discuss that with that condition on that letter, before we would actually approve it fully.
It would be good to maybe even contact Peavoy, who has a very good spray park,
Springland just
and
got
try
there.
Glenwood has one too.
and try to, but something of that magnitude to compare with
Yeah.
dollars and maintenance. Peavoy did it all by raising public funds, and they did it in 3 months. And the campaign for raising the funds were absolutely amazing. The whole community came together and did it at a speed of lightning, which blew my mind. But so it's doable. It's doable.
I just watched another example, Pincher Creek put a committee together to raise funds years ago and it never happened.
Right.
You know, so there's
So-
other sides to those stories too.
Yeah.
They don't have a spray park, but they've had a
Right.
committee for a number of years.
So it all depends who's driving it and
Yeah.
how hard they're willing to drive it. So if they drive it as hard as they did with the Lions Park playground, I would say they will be successful. All right? All in favor? Thank you.
That motion was basically to write the letter, but not a final.
No,
approval.
it's all what it is.
Okay.
Totally conditional.
Okay,
It's
great.
Highly
I'll bring it
conditional.
back for scrutiny.
Yeah, and then,
Totally conditional.
then we'll approve the letter at the next meeting,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, 7B, Blood Tribe Social Development Request. Jeff, maybe I would let you talk about that one, because you had contact with
Mr. Mills?
Albert. Yeah,
So I think you all should remember Delbert Mills. He
Yeah.
presented a couple of years
Delbert,
ago
not
Yeah.
Albert.
on
Okay, was he the one that had the one to do the youth?
Youth work project.
Yes,
In the
exactly.
summer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
I went to one of his projects with the youth
Yep.
years back.
Yeah, Delbert's trying to do a lot of very good things, and he's teamed up with social development. He called me to ask if, he's been meeting with the Community Foundation of Lethbridge in Southern Alberta about potential funding for this idea. And I give Delbert a lot of credit. He has it's a multi-faceted benefit, as he explains. Not only are you beautifying a place on the reserve, you're providing a green space for the residents there, but you're also getting rid of an eyesore on the highway that we share. So it's a beautification.
What is the exact location? It says west of the...
So if you drive down First, right here,
Yeah.
and you get to Highway 5, there's a burned out house right in front of you.
Oh, okay.
That's the
where you're
location
talking
right
about.
there.
Okay.
And so his intent, and he says he's already worked with Blood Tribe Housing to secure the site, they'll let him do all that. He's looking for some funds to put together with other ways he's raising money, and he hasn't provided me with a budget to see if they can do something to clean that up. This is a really interesting application because, oddly enough, the Blood Tribe does not have CRA charitable donation status. And so Community Foundation said that they don't have an opportunity as an entity to apply. And I was a little bit concerned about us being an applicant for another jurisdiction. So the Community Foundation is suggesting that this would look really good as a partnered grant application if we chose to move ahead with it, if we did. That this would be a good application to do as partners, with the town being the applicant, partnering with the Blood Tribe. There are some political things I don't know. I don't know what the feeling of Blood Tribe Chief and Council or the residents of Moses Lake are to the town participating with this on Blood Tribe lands and contributing to it. I don't know. Albert's suggesting that that's all good and well, and I can't see why it would be perceived negatively.
Jeff, if I remember the meeting that we had with MP Glenn Marks, there were there a fellow called Walter. Gosh, if I could remember his name. Can you remember his name?
Bottle, was it Bottle?
No.
The gentleman that was on my
From the
right.
wellness center,
Yes.
yeah,
Anyways,
treatment center.
and who really expressed,
Pardon me?
Healing Lodge.
Yeah. yeah.
who expressed his interest
No.
in working with the town on common project. I'm wondering if that would be one initiative, that would be that baby step moving forward to create that partnership, which we keep on talking about, but we cannot keep on talking about. We need to start doing something if there is a desire and a will. Here, what I require is, I do not exactly know if we are the one writing the grant, what does it mean for us later on? If we want to access some funding from the community future, does that leave us lurking?
So I can speak to that. We inquired specifically about that because the concern was we could sure use a little more money for the pool.
Right.
You know, 15,000 would be a good help for the pool. The Rotarians actually, Mr. Lowe came to me and said, would the town support us using would the town support us using the town's number to apply for the spray park to the Community Foundation as well? Now, because they were recipients last year, how the Community Foundation looks at it is, the town can apply every year, but who's the beneficiary? The beneficiary can only be every other year. So I thought I was bringing to you actually competing requests for this grant from the town. And the Community Foundation said, no, the Rotary is not eligible in 2017 because they were recipients in 2016. So we don't have two entities competing for a member for the grant. So that's a good thing. That frees that up. But we could also, I don't want to say be selfish here, but we could internally use that money as well.
Right. So, Councillor Bengry, go ahead.
Are we stepping on grounds that we don't want to go there? Regardless whether it's Moses Lake, whether it's standoff or whatever it is, chief and council still manages those grounds and those programs. Have they got behind and supported this?
Okay.
And that's, you know, are they going to look at it very negatively if we go ahead and do something?
Okay, that's a very good point. except that if you look at the signers of that letter, or the CC, it's CC to the Blood Tribe
Their Public
Housing,
Services Committee.
and the other one to Blood Tribe Wellness,
It
right?
was Chief and Council Public Services,
Right,
Blood Tribe Social Development, and Blood Tribe Reinvestment
Right.
Initiative.
in other words, it's not without their knowledge.
Okay, but is
Doesn't
it
mean-
with their stamp of good graces
Yes,
that they
Their
will?
blessing.
That is something we, at this point, do not know. And that is something, Councillor Bengry, I appreciate you raising that. It is an important factor.
Absolutely.
We should really be reassured about that first.
If council chooses to go down this road, and I'm not suggesting which way you go, I agree with Councillor Bengry. How we approach it is critical. Because if
Yes.
we approach it and say, well, we'll be the applicant, and then we're gonna show up and demo that house, and we're gonna
Right.
show up and do this,
Exactly.
that's viewed very differently than, hey, we're gonna help you get this money, we're gonna keep the spotlight on social development,
We're going to assist you.
we're gonna assist where it's reasonable improvement.
Right,
But being a conduit for the funds and managing the project are gonna be perceived very differently.
yeah. And so, if you had to give us a recommendation, considering that we're talking about two municipal entities, very different, one provincial, one federal,
Yeah.
what would be, if there was a will at the table to entertain supporting the idea that is brought forward, what would be the wisest way to do it for us not to be so politically incorrect?
Well, I'm flattered you think I'll go straight to the wisest way, but let me tell you what I'm thinking. One of the other concerns about these projects, because, and I want to be very fair to Mr. Mills, we saw this in the first proposal. What started as his idea that we were going to assist quickly became, we were the
We are doing
catalyst to make or
everything,
break it.
yeah.
And then when
There's
it
no-
didn't happen, we were to blame.
There's no budget and there's no
Right.
breakdown of the
So that's the
responsibilities.
risk.
That's a problem,
I don't know if we are 99% of the funding,
right?
or, and now again, we can always defer to the community foundation. They're gonna award it or they're not. And the budget will have to be part of that application and part of that process, for sure. But I don't want this to become a project that the town has to pull off,
Okay,
or it's gonna fail. That's my concern.
so should we maybe direct administration at this point, rather than to take a motion on the of support, rather direct administration to get a little bit more information regarding that project for us to understand the expected involvement of the town?
Mayor, I think that we need to have some kind of a letter or some kind of agreement drawn up and delivered to this administration saying that the chief and council will support this project.
Okay, so
That's-
it would be to be able to direct administration to seek that support.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think just being prudent, it is unlikely the chief and council will provide that letter of support by the October 15th grant deadline. And I think that
And
the
that's another
spirit,
problem, is time sensitive.
the spirit of this letter is that they don't think they're going to get that level of commitment, which is why they're coming to us.
Well, it's because I have no status,
Right,
We can't
tax
be
status.
behind chief and council.
yeah.
Their deadline is March the 15th,
Well, the fall intake is October 16th.
yeah.
There is a fall deadline.
I don't think they'd get it in time for that. It's-
Well, you've got an October 10th council meeting,
Yeah,
so that's your last council meeting is this council.
Okay, obviously, he has done his homework knowing that it could fly,
He's
And that
actually
could
been
get-
meeting with the community foundation,
Right.
which I was quite impressed by.
which tells me he knows that
They
there is
have
some
talked.
funding somewhere for community project. He knows that, obviously. Councillor Creed?
I'm quite in agreement with Councillor Bengry on this, that you know, there seems to be in our dealings with the indigenous community that no coordination, you know, this person wants to do this thing, and there are certain factions that seem to fight against it. We've noticed that in the powwow.
Internal disagreement.
Internal things.
Yeah.
But even, you know, if it's not a letter, there's some kind of a commitment, you know, even, you know, if Delbert could get somebody to even give us a phone call and say, yeah, we're on board with this, I think that would be great. But at the end of the day, I think the town's commitment should be no more than basically being a vehicle to help them, you know, apply the funds. I think that's really as far as we would go on that.
Here's another thing. We know that through the administration office, there is difficulty getting anything moved to the chief and council. So I would suggest that maybe whatever the letter might be would be sent via email to all the councillors on the chief and council. Because apparently they respond better
Individual.
to those type of things.
I mean, I've got a conduit to a blood tribe councillor that I could at least pitch it to him and say, how do you think this will go over?
Yeah, I mean.
You know, I've got someone who I can call and ask that. So I could at least bounce that off of that councillor and say, is this going to go like a lead balloon or everybody good?
Right. I really think we need to understand, because there also is, if ours is to help them with clean up of the area, possibly not, we need to also know how we function within the trespass bylaw that is in place. So that's another issue we have to deal with.
I'm just going to say this, that regardless of whether we do or we don't have dialogue with chief and council, I know how I'd feel if I was chief and council and somebody was trying to come in the back door. It would tick me off.
If they were
And so
coming
I
with
think
$50,000, would you feel better?
What's that?
If they were coming in the back door with a sack full of money, would it make you feel better?
No, it wouldn't. Because
Politically, it wouldn't.
we're still ignoring the fact that they are chief and council. And I think we need to recognize that they are chief and council. And
All right.
and until we get that dialogue with them, we need to be very smart that way.
All right, so you're making an interesting
To
point.
Councillor Bengry's point, we've learned some protocol lessons from the Glen
Yes.
Motts meetings.
Totally
Yes.
have.
So we've learned a couple of things.
Yes. Okay, so essentially what we need is a motion to direct administration, if you are so inclined, to pursue the possibility of support for that community. What is, it's not community future?
Yeah.
Right?
Community
Foundation.
Foundation.
I'm calling it the wrong way. A community foundation grant, okay? Thanks for the correction. So, who is so inclined to do so?
Just
Okay.
one last question. I'm in full support of helping them. If it turns out, though, that they can't meet an October 15th deadline, and this gets bumped into the March, would the town consider maybe applying on behalf of our pool project for the October 15th? I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there as a, I don't want to step on any toes here, but like I say, if they're going to miss this year's deadline and we can take advantage of that, maybe it's worth getting someone from.
The one thing is we are going to see other requests for our charitable donation status on the March 15th deadline too, potentially. So we'll have some competing priorities on that one. And again, we're under no obligation to lend out this
No,
stability.
we absolutely not.
Yeah.
But it's a worthwhile project. If there is some possibility of partnering, maybe that's a baby steps that we were talking about at the Glen Motts table.
If we can fashion this so that we are supporting, but there is a public champion to it,
Right.
that is on the reserve, an entity on the reserve, that is the public face champion of this, and we can support that, I think that's our best political
Yeah.
maneuver.
Okay, Councillor Creed?
So I will make the motion. I regret that I missed the Glen Motts meeting, so I don't know what the protocols that we learned, but I will make the motion to direct administration to to pursue the gathering knowledge of support or pursue, how will I say that, determining if there's support from the blood chief and council and others.
Community project in Moses
So
Lake.
that we're not,
Yeah,
picking
we
one
understand.
over another, so that.
Right, to follow proper protocol in order to see
Yeah.
our support.
Yeah, determine some, protocol to see if there's an appetite of support from the blood bank in general and the
For that project.
the total the community, like all of these places that he's CC'd, if there's some support.
Well, we have 2 letters
Yeah.
that comes back that is in support of it. Okay, so we have that motion. Does it work? Councillor Bengry, does it work? Okay, all right. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, so that is just for administration to help us understand
Mayor.
a little bit better what's going on here.
As we discussed, I know we've had the motion go through and stuff like that. In that Glenn Watts facilitation of that meeting, we talked about a committee.
That's what I'm trying to find out, that Walter,
Yeah.
that Mr. Walter somebody.
Was that committee ever decided upon
Yes,
after the meeting?
yes, that meeting.
And could that committee help facilitate dialogue with chief and council on this?
Not sure. I think we would be wiser at this point to go direct.
Let me start with Dalbert and see what he can do.
Okay.
Yeah,
He may have a good conduit to chief and council.
yeah.
He's a well-respected individual there.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. The 7C's an interesting request is Epic Youth Services request from Jeremy Preet. Jeremy is at this point trying to open a youth center that will be open to all, regardless of religion, gender, age.
He announced it this
Age 12
morning
to
on
18.
Facebook.
And it's a very noble project. It's something that I had personally identified as a need when I campaigned 7 years ago, and tried to see different way to bring something like that in our town, but the funding was always prohibitive. It was so much money and couldn't do it. So that a private party wants to do that, fund the funds to do it through the EPIC. They're becoming a branch of the Lethbridge, I would imagine.
Yes.
Youth services. Anyways, what he's trying to do is a very interesting project, is to be able to buy a recorder that would allow the youth to create connection with members of the communities that are at risk. And that being even our panhandlers on our street. And record their stories, try to come to understand who they are. That is one of the projects that he wants to work on. In order to do that, he needs a fairly good piece of equipment. Now there is money where we can find $1,300 or so. So what we need to know is there is a will for such a donation. Go ahead, Councillor Bengry.
As I read this letter, he mentions our community television channel. And we have the individual who runs that right here in our gallery right now. And I know that that TV channel has this type of equipment already available. And has he approached the local television channel to do something like this? until he gets his feet on the ground. You can't run before you walk, sort of thing. And I'm not wondering if we shouldn't utilize some of the stuff that we have in place already to help him with this. And I don't know if Corey would like to address that or not.
I do not know.
If I may, I think the intention here for the Epic Youth Center is to have a video camera that they own, that they possess, that they can check out like a library to the youth who could then run down Main Street and then return it to them. I don't know if a partnership with Channel 32 or even with the town asset would meet their needs from that youth center. So I think the request is for ownership of a camera that they could then send out from there. Because I know Corey's house is prohibitive, you know.
But are we getting the cart before the horse? Have we got everything on ground and up and running, and we need this and we need that? Before we even have the programs, we haven't even seen his programming and what's happening. I mean, this is a tremendous thing, and the outcomes, you know, are scheduled, but I think we need to have some kind of a situation where we know what's happening.
Would we want to have Jeremy come and address council?
Exactly.
Great idea.
Why don't we have him come to council? Council of the whole will be a perfect time.
The next meeting.
October,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay? Why don't we do something like that as a recommendation?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same opinion as Councillor Peavoy, because Channel 32, Corey he works full-time, he's
Yeah,
got
there's
limited
not going
time.
to be at home
And
all the
and
time.
not
on
going-
this meeting.
and if I was him, I wouldn't want to be lending out my camera equipment to anybody.
is something
You know,
that
and I think that if they're going to have a program, they need to have their own camera. And I don't know where it says here that they're going to be lending it out to kids. I think that they're probably going to have to very carefully.
Well, maybe if we have Jeremy come to council,
Yep,
I think that would probably
yeah, that'd be the best.
allow us to ask all the questions that we need regarding his program, his setup and his facility, etc. Maybe we need to understand all that.
Well, I know he's working with 2 youth services in Lethbridge.
Yes, he is.
And they're
And he's
the
fully qualified
parents
also.
for this organization.
Well, he's got
And
the
so I
education.
would suggest if we had Jeremy come here, do a presentation, and then see what that parent organization is willing to help him with to start out right now.
Okay, so we have a few questions. So the recommendation might be at this point to invite Jeremy to council on the CCW in October to help us understand the scope of his program and the use of that camp recorder.
Also, Mayor, this could also fall under, I believe, the FCSS.
That's what I was referring to before, but I don't think they'll buy equipment under
No.
FCSS.
I don't know.
That
They will
was-
support,
If it's for the
No.
youth services, I don't know.
they'll support the program, but I don't think FCSS will fund equipment
Well, they
purchases.
fund books and stuff like that.
Well, Books for Babies program, yeah, I don't know, that might be something to look at.
Okay,
'Cause, yeah.
so who is on the FCSS right now? Well, Councillor, maybe you want to ask that question.
Well, I think we need a presentation from Jeremy first. I'd like to hear
I'm
a
sure that
presentation.
Jeremy must have queried regarding FCSS. He was on that board.
He
So,
has. He has.
go ahead,
Had a
Jeff.
little side conversation with Corey here. If we want to defer this to CCW and bring Jeremy, that would get us a chance for us to maybe investigate some other options that could be out there between the schools and Channel 32.
Thank
I
you.
just don't know we're prepared to put Corey on the spot right here.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to visit with him
All
in the
right.
next couple days.
So that will be a good thing. So thank you, councillors. When we cannot make a decision, best is to defer and to get more information.
Yeah.
And I think that's the wisest way to go.
Do we
So we need a,
want a motion to invite him to?
I'll make a recommendation that we invite Jeremy. to-
okay, who wants to do
CCW.
something like that? Go ahead.
I make a recommendation to the administration, look into viability of this situation with Epic and invite Jeremy to come to CCW and give us a presentation on what the project's all about and a little bit more about the expectations so we can make a proper decision.
Thank you. Okay, that's a long motion. I hope you got it recorded.
Be condensed appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
You go with
A motion
that
or a recommendation?
Okay,
as a recommendation.
it's a recommendation. You want it as a motion?
Okay, I'll make it as a motion then.
All right, so all in favor? Thank you very much. I really want to applaud Jeremy for taking on
Absolutely.
such a
I didn't realize he was.
wonderful thing. Yeah, he's highly qualified.
Carpet man.
He graduated from BYU Idaho through the Pathway program.
Good for him.
He
Yeah.
did the Pathway and then he went
I
on
must
to
be
get
proud of
a
him.
master's degree. So.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, 7D,
Success stories.
Tourist Information Center lease. Now that is an interesting story, and because it's so complex, we shall let Jeff talk about
He's good at complex things.
his headache for the past 3 years.
No, it's been okay. We finally I'm encouraged by where we're at, let's put it that way. There's 2 documents in your background. The first is simply a 1-page letter, and that letter, infrastructure wants a bridging document that says, we recognize your lease expired in 2006, so let's write this letter that says we're just going to abide by the old lease until 2017. So it's a 10-year, 10-month bridging letter. And so that's something that if council approves this contract, I can sign. Now the contract, it's so interesting. You pursue these things and pursue these things, and years later find out it's the smallest of things that hold you up. As you know, we've talked about this before. I've pursued
Absolutely.
for years trying to get this agreement, but every time they'd send me one, it was this boilerplate agreement to lease a building. And I kept saying, I'm not leasing a building. I'm leasing the land. The town already owns the building, so I'm not going to sign this. And I've had everything from just sign it, we don't look at it anyway, to... And I just said, no, we're not going to do that. So then it would just go quiet. I've told you before, every time I say something, I don't hear anything for over a year. So I have a lot of time. Now, to infrastructure's credit, and I should explain, so the land that the facility's on is owned by infrastructure. The whole parcel is managed by culture. And whenever you do that, you start getting a lot of stuff lost in interpretation, in translation. You just do, because you got 2 entities that are relatively autonomous that don't talk. So what happened is I have met in Edmonton on a couple of occasions with culture saying we need a better working arrangement on how we're sharing costs of that facility. It was built for the benefit of the Remington Museum, and they've been paying the gas bill since the beginning of time on that building. And I thought we had an agreement that we were going to have an annual contribution from culture for the partnership of the building. That's how I left the last meeting in Edmonton. And then last year at AUMA, I met with the ADM of culture because I wasn't getting any response, and he told me, you give me 6 weeks while the formal response. I've never heard from him again. That was last year at AUMA. But one day, Joyce called me from the Remington and said, I've received official confirmation, we're canceling the gas bill, we're not paying any more costs associated with the building, we're out. I said, okay, this is completely different from what we discussed. And so they did that, they canceled, we picked up the gas bill, that's fine. It really is, it's okay. We don't need to complicate it. So I've asked them to get their marquee off of the building because we're powering it. And so they're going to trench a line all the way from the marquee of the Remington Museum because they don't want to pay a portion of the electrical bill. So fine, their decision, that's going to commence any time here. And so then finally Raj Das from infrastructure showed up, and Raj and I had never we've never met face to face, we've always known who each other were, and Raj says, why can't we get this lease signed? I said, because you keep wanting me to lease a building that infrastructure doesn't own. And he said, oh, that's what it is? We can fix this. So, a great, someone from infrastructure in Edmonton named Heather began sending me a new draft. There are still a number of items, if you went through this, that you will see seem to obligate us with respect to what we can do with the building. And I pushed back on that initially, but after talking with Heather for some time, I realized that culture has to protect themselves, that in the event we walk away from that place, they don't inherit something with environmental hazard, They don't inherit something that they're gonna have to pay to demolish or clean up a site and have a brownfield site. So they do want some discretion over what can happen in the building. So what this agreement did is try to balance their concerns with my desire for autonomy with the building. I didn't feel that if we wanted to put a poster in the window, I needed to call and get approval from infrastructure, which is what the original one said. And so we found what I feel is maybe not an ideal agreement, but it is the best thing we've had in 8 years, in absence of another agreement. So what it does, I feel, is it gives them some reassurance that we will not run the building down and leave them with a liability, which I respect that. And it gives us some autonomy to do as we see fit, that we can sublease if we choose to private entities, we can run whatever programming we see fit. We have no obligation to accommodate the Remington Museum for space, although I'd love to. We don't have the accommodation that we must. And that's really where it landed. Now, materially, there's one other small change in that in order to get more autonomy with the use of the land, we have to pay rent on the land. So when we had a no rent lease before, and now what they've said is we have to pay $500 a year for lease of the 0.39 acres, and then this gives us additional autonomy. So I had agreed to that for the $500, we're actually in a financial, more positive position with Jerem running it than we were previously. And so I don't feel like we're in an inferior financial position overall in the building. So we are going to inherit the gas bill, we are going to inherit the $500 a year rent, it's annual.
What about the power?
Well, we were always paying that. That was always ours anyway. So we paid internet, phone, water, sewer, any of the municipal fees.
Okay.
That was always our piece. And we did bill the Remington a portion of that because we were running their marquee. And all the controls and computer for the marquee are in that building. So we've got a few things to separate out and get it sorted out. But I am recommending that council approve the agreement and that we get this finally tidied up and move on.
All right, Councillor Bengry, you want
Also
to do
move
so?
to make that motion.
Sounds like it is a motion to approve the agreement, the lease agreement in regard to the Tourist Information Center.
Yep.
So that's one motion, Councillor Peavoy.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, we have two 7Ds, one,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
11-year
That's
gap.
interesting, and
Is
the
that
other one is
a
a
separate
letter.
motion?
Yeah, actually, if we could, that would be
Yeah.
good. Let's approve that letter, because really we just are signing a retroactive 10-year, 10-month contract
Okay.
with
Do you
infrastructure.
mind which
No.
orders are done? Okay, all right. So,
So
all in
this is-
favor?
This is for the new
That's a
one.
lease.
the new
This
That's
is
a
for the
lease.
new one.
This is for
The
the
lease
agreement.
moving forward, okay. All right, now we need a motion to approve the
I'll move to approve the bridge
bridging
lease. What is that, a lease? It's a letter
lease
agreement.
agreement.
Yeah, it is a letter lease agreement.
Letter agreement, they call it.
The one on file, R0970B01-2, that one. And to cover the period from July 31st, 2002 to, oh, no, excuse me. That's
December
from
31st.
December 31st, 2006 to September 30th, 2017.
Right, that's correct. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. I think that should help you, Jeff, to sort out this item for a little while
So that
anyways.
means now that building is ours to do what we want to do with
But
it.
it's always
We just
been
have a
our
lease.
It's always
It always
been
has
ours.
been
yeah.
ours.
Yeah.
But
We've never had.
But we
we're
don't
not as
have that
restricted
permission.
as we once were. Yes,
Yeah,
correct. I
exactly.
mean, within some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we still charging Remington for power at this point in time?
Until that's disconnected, yes.
Okay. 7E, this is an interesting little agreement. West Wind School Division election agreement. As you know, during the municipal election, there is also an election of school board division. And Jeff will explain to you what the agreement is all about. Essentially, we are doing it a little bit different from the past,
Well, yes, we're trying to make sure we're
covering our
compliant.
bases.
So we have always assisted the school division in the past. You could always take a school board trustee ballot at the town election. However, under the act, it's not totally appropriate for me to be the returning officer of a school board election. And so what this does is this agreement is essentially saying the town is going to be the returning officer of the election, including Ward 2 of the school board. at this voting station. And so anything, I am the returning officer for that portion of their election in this facility, because we couldn't have multiples, we didn't want multiples, and you shouldn't. But it also outlines the extent that we'll go. So for example, we will deliver ballots, we will collect ballots, and that's it.
We won't count.
We will not count them, and we don't fill out their provincial paperwork. So what I have to do, just so you know, and this isn't all in the agreement, but what happens is once the voting station closes, I just have to tell the school division, we have documentation that says we handed out 1,000 school board trustee ballots. So that's the Form 8 that everyone signs. So it checks on there whether it was town or school or both. I have to give them that number, and then I have to seal the ballot boxes,
Right.
and they take them to the school division office and do the count. So that's what this is outlining. Again, we've done that before, we've worked together very well over the years, but Peter Wright and Trina Merrill and I met and determined that we'd be in better shape to have that outlined in an agreement. And the big issue is what if someone protests, or there's a
Controversial.
there's a word in the act, but a controversy, or someone challenges the validity of the election. The buck needs to stop somewhere. I'm not crazy that it stops with me, but the risk is minimal. We'll conduct a good election by the rules, and we'll all follow those same rules. So that's what the agreement lays out. It really just formalizes that relationship and specifies how that should be.
Okay. Councillor Bengry?
Jeff, does that mean that we will have an individual table set up down there for a school trustee?
No, when you go to your table, whatever table you want, whatever polling station,
Yeah.
you may choose which ballots you want to receive. So you can choose councillor, school board, or both.
Okay.
And you go behind, vote for them, and they'll be different colored. The schools are going to be blue and ours are yellow.
You have
And
different
then they're
boxes.
deposited in their respective ballot boxes.
Okay,
Yeah.
As in the past.
yes.
All right. So, Councillor Edmonds, do you want to put a motion forward?
Sure, why not? When we get to the top of it here. Okay, I make a motion that we approve the electric service agreement between the town of Cardston and the West Wind School Division.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you.
You know, I just wondered,
There is-
they
there
pay
is-
for that?
There is,
Pardon me, they pay for that service, right?
I was going to talk about this very issue. Okay,
Correct. They
Jeff?
compensate us for
Yes.
running this
Okay.
ward election for them.
All right, that's all.
There is, I was going to just mention that to you guys.
So you're on the same
So,
wavelength.
exactly.
And they have in
All
the
right.
past.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, this really doesn't change how we've done it, it
No.
just formalizes those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 7F, AUMA ministry meetings. That is a request by Jeff because of all the work that is being done on the electrical front. We need to have possibly the ability to meet with the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Environment. Am I correct, Jeff?
Environment and energy.
Okay, so that's correct. So essentially what we're looking at right now is to have a motion to allow administration to set up meetings with those two
Yeah,
ministries.
I will move to direct administration to attempt to set up a meeting with Alberta Environment and Alberta Energy for the purpose of discussing electrical regulation amendments.
At the AUMA.
At the AUMA.
Fine, thank you. All in favor? And hopefully we can get them in the same room at the same time.
Boy, now you're really.
That would-
That's a requirement of the motion.
Anyways, 7G. I really would like Councillor Creed to stand up for a second because here we have a presentation. We have received from our community in Bloom a five Bloom recognition, which is the highest recognition you can get.
Actually, we won the
And one
category for communities from
2001.
2,000 to 6,000, anyway, the populations.
Overall.
In that population range, we were the Communities in Bloom provincial winner.
4 communities are.
Wow, is
And
there
it's
a
about-
monetary
And
prize?
it's about time.
Associated
No,
with
we get
that?
the plaque.
And it looks like the heritage trees pushed us over, eh?
The heritage tree is nice, so I wanted to mention that, and also thank Dennis's wife, because she's the one that did the research to found out the, you know, the story behind the trees. And I want to thank council for adopting the heritage tree policy and designating those trees as a heritage tree, so thank you.
Don't go anywhere,
Oh,
council.
you want me to jump back?
Hang on, I want to get a picture too for my
All right,
wife.
let's go here. 1, 2, 3. I'll do one more. Thank you.
Okay, now,
Good job, Councillor.
Yeah.
bring you a little closer.
Thank Diane for us.
You worked hard on that Communities in Bloom.
5 blooms.
That's awesome.
Are we putting these somewhere? Where are these going?
The plaque, I don't know, we'll.
Don't we have a collection
find a
now?
good
Let's go up
prominent-
here or
Well,
prominent place.
you know something, interestingly enough, it's our second one.
Is it? Okay.
The first one we received, we got.
Well, we got 5
awarded
blooms, we didn't win last time.
No,
But
we were close.
We were
but
close.
This time we won.
So we did
We
win.
need
and,
this plus a
uh,
banner, you know, and then we'll mail that to the next community.
Well, there are many communities
Sounds
that, there are many communities who advertise themselves as a Community in Bloom winner.
Yeah, I
It's
just
something interesting.
like to make one other comment, is that in the evaluation that we received from the judges,
I'd like to see that.
they, yeah, and actually I would like to get a copy of that for all of council, of the evaluation. I think it would be very valuable, even in
To
your strategic
understand.
planning, to look at and see how we were evaluated and the recommendations that were made by the judges.
Absolutely.
But one of the comments is that they said that we have the potential as a community to be a national Communities in Bloom champion, because we have some things going for us in our community, so
Well,
that might be something worth
Maybe
looking
that would be
at.
something worthwhile pursuing.
Is Angel in receipt of that evaluation? Where would I
Yeah,
find it?
she has the evaluation, I gave it to Angel,
Okay.
so.
Do you want me to put it in the CCW agenda
I would
then?
appreciate
That would be
that.
great.
Yeah. And Councillor, thank you very much. I know how hard you work on that committee, and I know how hard you worked on the display with Mrs. Bond, Diane, and to make it beautiful and really worthwhile having. in our
Did you install the
community.
new plaque?
Yeah, I did, it's
in place now?
the new metal
So-
sign is
Mhm.
on that.
So thank you so much. It's really something that we need to publish and put on our website and wherever we can
Yeah.
communicate
I
that.
wrote a little article for the paper to ask Angel to submit that, so.
Good.
Yeah, and so a picture with it would be nice.
Picture, yeah.
Thank you. All right, under 8, financial report, none this meeting. Under 9, committee report, I would say that was pretty slim reading.
Did you not get mine?
I did.
If it came after the time, then.
No, I sent it in on Friday.
Oh, so sorry.
I emailed you and said wasn't gonna get your committee reports out. I left to go to a wedding. Shem put everything we had out.
Okay.
I'll put it in the next one.
Okay, all right. Do you want
Oh, I
to
don't care, 'cause
do you want to
it's
I have it in
discuss?
the file, but he
All
sent
right.
everything out, good for him. He looked at that and saw I had nothing in that
Yeah.
folder.
Let's go
Council, since I don't have anything to really talk about regarding those committee meetings, could you see to it that forwarded to Jeff, and maybe Jeff, could you put them in the CCW? Also, I know it's not the right,
Any of the remaining ones, you mean?
yeah,
Oh, sure.
yeah. And try to finish business before next council.
Oh,
I
yeah,
would
we also have a
appreciate that.
second meeting.
I had a Chinook Foundation,
You know.
Councillor Creed and I had a Chinook Foundation.
Yeah, I would,
Last night.
unless you have something urgent to talk about, if you want to delay it. Councillor Creed?
Make a comment, actually, that from my Communities in Bloom report, I'd actually made a statement in the Communities in Bloom report. I think I've suggested to Jeff before that for instance, our Communities in Bloom meeting for this month is tomorrow,
Right.
and that makes a long time before it comes back to council. It's kind of old news. And so my recommendation is that, in the future going forward, possibly with the new council, is that the committee reports be not all on the one council night, but they be spread over the month to make them a little bit more timely.
I think that is a wise recommendation.
I agree with Councillor Creed, because Chinook Foundation is always at the end of the month.
Yeah, and we don't have time to write them.
No,
Yeah.
and,
Or present them in timely fashion. Yeah, well, that's something for next council to kind of decide what they want to do.
One that came a day late and will be in the next, when Jeff sends them out, is the Waste Authority.
Oh, yes.
And just a
Please.
quick report on that, of significance, is we got third reading on our commission vote. So now that
Okay.
has
All
gone
right,
to,
so-
and we also approved the hiring of the administrative services of the Raymond Administrative Group. That, do they have a name, that formal Raymond collaboration?
Yeah, there's something.
That group is
Okay,
going
all
to
right.
administer the affairs of the commission, and so they have been tasked now with the process. We estimate it's a 9-month process to become a commission, but that vote went through, and so everything we
Okay,
can do as a board was
so-
done before the election. We wanted to tidy that up.
Okay, so help me understand, if they have been hired, they're going to have to be paid, so that
Correct.
is added onto the, do we know the salary?
That was approved already, long ago. That was approved maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
The amount of the salary?
The up to an amount, and of course, it was Scott's expectation that he wouldn't need to spend that much to do the job. So he was going to, if he had to go over that, he'd inform us, but it
Okay.
was approved up to a
All
certain.
right, okay, so that will be reflected in the 2018 requisition.
That will be, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, just a good heads up. Thank you, Councillor, for that timely report.
I'd just like to ask, or make a short little report on the ORS meeting. One of the things that I thought was, there were 3 presentations. The one I thought was interesting was the trail planning within the community.
The trail
Trail planning.
Walking
Like
trails?
walking trails, yeah.
within the community.
Within community.
Within
Within
communities.
communities, yeah, within your own specific community. They were encouraging all the various communities to look into trail planning and use them as a promotional
Yeah.
thing to
for
bring
tourism.
people into your community.
Tourism, yeah.
And they were talking about the McGrath doing their
With
decluttered
Cardston,
trail
with,
there.
With
And-
Coaldale.
Yeah, and I thought about our own trail, and we're talking about doing some extension on ours too. And, I think we got a beautiful path and trail out there.
Has anybody been on that one that goes through the Atkins subdivision? There's a
Yeah, there's
trail
been several
through that
people,
now.
there's been several people
We walk
down
all the
there.
way up that.
Okay, so can I ask something?
Yeah.
Regarding that trail, some people ask me, is that public property?
no.
So,
And so that's what I was telling them. I said, you're welcome to walk, but it's not public
so
property.
no and yes. Some of it weaves in and out of municipal reserve or environmental reserve.
Right.
But most of it is on private property with an public access easement. So
Okay.
it's absolutely a public trail that should be used by anyone in the community that wishes to use it. But technically, it's on private property with an easement.
Right, so that's what I kind of thought that, so you clarified something for me and I'll be able to report to them.
That Mr. Atkins is allowing people.
Yeah, he is, I was.
But
Yeah.
we contributed financially to that significantly.
Well,
so-
yes, exactly. Didn't come without the cost.
Just along those lines, are we okay on signage down there? Do we need to maybe look at additional signage to help clarify use, dog policy, that kind of thing?
Now you're talking.
Motorized vehicles?
I'm actually waiting for the Rotary to do something there. This was kind of their baby for this
Yes.
2017 year,
It
so
was,
I'm expecting something to come of that.
It was David Johnson.
Yeah. So I keep waiting for a big reveal, a big to-do. I just
Ribbon
haven't
cut.
Yeah, I just haven't seen it yet.
We need to do a public announcement at least.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things in the report, they were talking about some of the design features, and they were bringing up that very thing, was, tree along the river's edge, and having permanent benches if possible, and garbage bins, and
Garbage
signage,
bins is
all
significant to us.
those kind of things, and possibly gym equipment, for the exercise thing. They were talking about those kind of things, and I thought, that's kind of interesting.
Well, it's interesting because.
But anyways, you'll get to see my report a little bit more, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
That they are concerned,
Pushing
and they're really promoting it, not pushing it, but promoting that every community take
Should
an
have
opportunity to look into pathways, trails through their communities, so that it can be an extra feature to bring people into your community and economic benefit. So, that's good.
I would say any little feature like that is good. All right, so should we carry on? Thank you so much. CAO report, it was a lengthy report, and Jeff, you touched on many points. Are there any points, councils, that you want some clarification on? Councillor Bengry.
Jeff, can you give us an update on the Axios? What's
Sort of, I like that.
What can I say and what no?
Yeah, right.
We have met, so formally from Axia, there's been no announcement.
Okay.
And they will not, Axia will not confirm with me that the build is going ahead. However, we have met in some pretty serious discussions with the contractor who seems to have every intention of building it out. So I have to, my feeling is we're 2 weeks away from an Axia announcement. Now I say that maybe very ahead of the game, but that's my feeling in the meetings I've had. We're trying to get some contracts done between their contractor and the town. It seems like it's happening, but when I called Axia, they said we're not prepared at this point to announce Cardston.
So we shall be happy to know that there are many other subcontracts that have been signed,
Yeah.
and many conversations that have happened at the office level, and maybe we'll leave it at that for now.
The reason why I asked that, Jeff, is because McGrath is moving forward, and the new Diamond Willow Terrace is going to be all Axis.
Yeah.
Good.
It's already wired.
Yeah, no, they're just finishing Fort McLeod as well. So that was a good thing.
Okay,
So,
Councillor Creed.
yeah, I'm just wondering if this gives people an opportunity to still give the expression of interest. One of the advantages of giving expression of interest that was put forward in your Axia meeting was that if you want to subscribe at the time, that they'll waive the installation, the hookup charges.
Yeah, I certainly still would.
And so I'm wondering if that extends until the time that Axia makes the announcement.
I would think so.
And
Yeah.
so,
Because aside from us and whoever just watches this by Thursday, nobody's aware this thing's even moved forward.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if that gives the opportunity for people to still, go to the Axia website and make that expression of interest and get in on that.
I don't know what their cutoff is, but I would think so.
Well, we can thank Councillor Edmonds for his great push, and I contributed a little bit to the push, but he beat me 2-1.
One more question in the CEO report is under electrical. Still, there's a statement here, Jeff, that says there is still progress on the electrical regulation initiative that I'm
Yes.
working with on Kevin Phillips. Can
Yes.
you update us on that?
That is the motion.
Again, sort of. I'd like to put together, actually, even for CCW, a bit of a more formal briefing to council on what's going on. Essentially, we are going down two streams right now. Things are actually quite quiet on the provincial level. We've made our inquiries to the province. It's a little bit quiet. We're not getting a lot of feedback. But the federal government, through NRCan, has put out a program where they're looking for community electrical systems and getting generation close to the consumption.
Good.
So we had to do a screening application, I'll call it. So they were looking for potential sites to test this concept. And so we submitted and we're moved forward to the next stage where they wanted a more formal application. So that's being put together right now and should go in the next week. If we're approved there, that actually gives us some leverage with the province to say, hey, look, in order to accomplish the mandate of the provincial or the federal government, we need a little help on the regulation from a provincial level. And so we're pursuing this one a little more aggressively in order to try and use it as leverage for the provincial discussions.
Good.
And Councillor Bengry, this is the reason why we want to meet the ministers at the UMA.
Exactly.
All the high
Yeah, we're hoping about a month from now, the timing's just about right to say, look, it looks like this might happen with
Just
the
slide
feds.
right in, yeah.
So we're gonna need some help here on the
And
regulation piece.
Jeff, I want to thank you so much for all you have done to become so knowledgeable of the electrical system and the
I
potential.
got Kevin to lean on there.
Yeah,
That
but
helps tremendously.
regardless, you had a...
You got to know Kevin.
Yeah,
So that's-
Kevin and
You had a very strong learning curve,
Yeah,
and you took the challenge to come to understand that very complex
This-
world.
this still has some really intriguing ramifications, really intriguing, and so I like,
That's chapter 2.
yes.
Let's try to close chapter 1.
Yes, that's right. One other thing I didn't mention in my CEO report that I wanted to mention, I totally forgot, Alberta Emergency Management about a month ago came down and did a review of our emergency response plans, binders, programming, partnerships, and I'd had that, they gave me thankfully 2 months heads up, so I had it as updated as I could. He gave me some good feedback, he was very impressed with what we had in place. We actually got to execute some of it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, but he gave some really good feedback on other things we could work on as a community, and so I've got all that, and that went really well too. That was a good review.
Thank you. Councillor Edmonds?
I guess you could include this in the electrical portion. Is Shaw ever going to remove their cables off the old poles?
I can't, as a Shaw, I can't speak for Shaw. And by the way, I had a lady in town who thought I could. She wanted me to fix her cable and was very upset. But that's another story. I like to do what I can for
Was that
people.
your grandma?
I could not, no, it wasn't. Not related to me. They've got some done. There is a few parts of it done, but no, it's certainly not all done.
So it looks kind of weird when you drive
I know,
through town and
I
there's
know. Double poles.
double poles everywhere, and some of
It
the
is.
wires are up and some of the...
I see
something-
them working on Sunday.
We've had
They're working
progress.
On Sunday doing
Yeah,
some
we've
wires.
had progress.
Jeff, would it be possible to put an update on our social media regarding those polls? If people wonder why we still have 2 poles, 2 rows of pole, is because we're waiting for Fortis to do the job and not the town to do the job?
We can, yes. My other hope is depending on what happens with Axia, that's a good opportunity for us to get a bunch of pole
Right.
work done as well, because they want to install everything on the new poles.
So that might remove
So
the
maybe
other
we
one?
could get some things, and we may even find, we had a discussion that maybe Shaw would sub Quanta to move their stuff to new poles. Like,
Oh, well.
there may be some opportunity to bundle all this up where there's
Yeah.
guys in bucket trucks on poles.
Right. It's interesting because I had this same
Yeah.
comment. Why do I still have to look at those poles on the front of my house?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you. 9C, the peace officer report. You can see it's a fairly thorough report. You can see that our peace officer is now starting to transition from letting people know that they are not following the rules to enforcing it more carefully. So if anybody can hear us, please watch what you do. And
You obey the law.
it's going to be costly.
Yeah, and one thing, and I don't revel in this because it's not a good thing, but this was the first month he could arrest. And so we
Because of
saw
the
on Main
truck.
Street that he had 5 arrests and detained and taken to cells. So that shift is happening as well.
Yes. So please thank our peace officer for his work in the community. I know he's very involved. He attends meetings. He really wants to get more involved in the schools and try to make the kids a little bit more streets safe. So I very much appreciate that level of involvement. It's something that I wanted to see for a long time happening in our community. The kids need to be really given the proper information in order to watch what they do.
You know, I just want to commend him, maybe by yourself, Jeff. I've seen him acting more as like a department head than as just an employee, you know,
Yeah.
and I respect that. That's great.
Yeah, he's taking just great ownership of the whole
Yeah.
thing. and
Right.
Very autonomous and it's...
Very, very competent.
You know.
Not always loved, but very competent.
Hard to be loved.
He's not worried about that.
He's doing great.
Okay, 9D gives you a project report. Any question regarding that, Councillor Creed?
Yeah. initially it wasn't on my drive, but I brought that up to them and they got it on. And Jeff would just say that everything was completed, actually, almost,
I
not
see,
quite.
I was just raising my hand, I see I was mistaken.
Not
So,
quite sure. Let me have it.
Okay, go ahead.
Second Avenue East?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Dust
Yes.
control.
Yeah, tomorrow.
And,
Tomorrow.
let me see, pool renovation.
The pools we knew were going into the
Yeah.
new year.
That's still
Okay.
coming.
Yeah.
But when Dennis was talking a little bit about the walking trails, there is actually one, it says, let's see, where walking trail by 9th Avenue Bridge. And I thought, well, I'll wait till we talked about project report. It says to be determined. And I'm just curious where that walking trail was
By nine?
on
Oh.
which side of the bridge?
9,
Goes up over.
I know, it goes, well, once you go under the bridge, then you get onto the Atkins Trail, but are they planning on?
I think Brandon had that in there because it was in our capital to contribute to Atkins Trail.
Oh, okay, so I'm
And
wondering if
because it was
that's-
Atkins, we can't give it a date because it's his,
Yeah.
it's on
Yeah,
his
I
schedule.
think it's probably on there because it was in our capital budget
Oh,
and we
okay,
financially contributed.
because I think that trail pretty much is
Yeah, I
completed
would say
on the
that's
other
that,
side of the
yeah.
bridge.
Yeah,
I just wondering if there was a plans to
No.
extend
no.
that down there. There was, last time I was up, there was still a pile of the
That-
rock
yeah.
on the north side of the bridge.
I'm not sure.
Uh,
They were just stockpiling there, I think.
yeah, it's on the side where the campground is. Oh, on the other
No,
side.
on
On
the
the
other
north side of the
yes,
bridge, just
yes,
before, you know,
yes,
where the
yes,
old
yes.
trail ends, and there is a bit of a gap from where the trail is paved to where the hill's been sliding, and they've just basically just used a dirt
Yeah.
trail, and I'm wondering if
There's
there's
millings in there, I think.
plans to
Yeah.
upgrade that, or,
Well,
We
that'll be
haven't had
an
that discussion,
interesting,
oh, okay.
be an interesting capital project
Mhm.
for next council.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so you know too, on the Second Avenue East, because I saw that wasn't done, Bart told me the guy with the oil, he comes tomorrow
For the dust
Yeah.
abatement, yeah.
on that second.
And I'll be so glad.
Just up past Rick's Auto, there's a couple blocks there in front of the trailer court that's gravel. So that's gonna have
That's
the.
Second Street.
Where Sheen's,
Sorry,
where
yes.
Sheen's,
Second Street East.
has
They were
their
up
property.
there, they were up there
Yeah,
today.
right.
Probably
Yeah.
hauling gravel up there today.
Yeah,
Right.
Gotcha,
yeah,
okay.
they
And
grabbed it.
I will
That's
be
why I was
glad
confused.
because
Sorry,
honestly,
Second Street.
I like to walk there, but when a car passes, you come back home and
Have a shower,
you look like
been through the war.
a mess. Anyways, I appreciate that. Now, let's finish the correspondence. There is so few things, and then let's take a break to eat and go in camera. Does that work?
Yep.
All right. So, 11A, as you noticed, we have a thank you letter to council for the good job we did collectively. It's a very nice letter, so nice that I called Mr. Schindler and thanked him. Because I thought it's not every day that you receive a thank you letter.
So it's interesting, I was up to Mr. Schindler's place the other day, and he said, you know, Dennis, he says, I need to write a letter to the council. He said, you guys have been the best council ever. He says, and I need to acknowledge that. And then, oh, I'll write a letter. And he did.
Well, that's good. And I think we're worth $1 million. So that's
Call
even
me
better.
Wrinkle.
All right, 11B is a confirmation, grant confirmation for the, what was it, $900,000 for MSI for the completion of the phase 2 of the pool. 11C, Alberta Municipal Affairs is if you have somebody who is deserving of an award for library, who is on the library board?
David
Oh,
Edmonds.
David.
I would recommend Donna, but I don't know if you want to pursue that or look into it.
Good.
She's
Or even Michelle.
she's exceptional in that role.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you feel so inclined to see somebody awarded, there is no harm to it and only good for our community. And 11D, Economic Developers of Alberta.
That's the
That was
That's an
Bev
award for
Thornton
our local Bev
Received an
Thornton.
award.
Yeah.
She won an international award.
National.
So worldwide, we're gonna call it
Yeah,
Miss
first-
Universe of Economic
Who
Development.
did this?
Bev
Bev
Thornton,
Thornton.
right here in Bengry.
Yeah.
Southwest.
And she represents Alberta Southwest. She's been the
Fantastic.
president of the Canadian, well, what is she, the president this
Of
year?
the EDA, yeah.
Of
Yeah,
the,
Canadian
but
EDA.
of the whole Canada. And anyway, she got an award from the
She
international.
is a very active and proactive lady in promoting economic development in southern Alberta and in Alberta in general. And kudos to her, so please pass on
Does
our
anybody ever
congratulations.
attend their conference from our community?
The-
I get letters
we have.
constantly.
We-
No, I mean the EDA conconferences that they have in Banff.
Okay, every so often they have,
Barfuss went last time.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone knows, like, Bev, I've gone to some of the Southwest meetings, and of course, Councillor Peavoy knows her, and maybe some of you other, but she is a wonderful promoter and a very personable person. I actually would like to make a motion that we send her a message of congratulations, whether we do email or a letter, but
Sure.
I would like to move that we send a message from the town to congratulate her on
Yes.
that award.
idea.
Especially because we are a member of Alberta Southwest. So why don't we do it as a letter? And I think it would be best. So a very good recommendation. Are in favor? Thank you. All right, so that will be the end of this meeting. We will adjourn to have a break.
Okay, I will move that we recess for a break.
Okay, and we will come back, let's say, in 20 minutes? 20 minutes will be fair?
For that
Or do
time,
you
we'll
want,
just eat.
okay, here's another thing. We could take a 5-minute break, go in camera, eat while we are in camera.
It's fine.
I'm okay with that
Okay,
too.
I think that would be better.
And foreign
So,
references.
all in favor?
Personal.
Thank you.
Just bless the food.
Would you like to do that,
I do
Councillor?
that. Thank you.
Okay.
Or how about 10?
Please turn.